Ladies and gentlemen of the Gallery Gourmet, my name is
Will, and welcome back to my channel. As anyone who has to put up with me in my real life knows, I am a big fan of the 2023 film Wonka, directed by Paul King and starring Timothy Chalamet in the titular role. My love for this movie, that has ostensibly been made for kids, is such that I've been accused of ironic fandom and even doing a bit. As someone who loves doing bits, I understand, but my love for Wonka is 100% genuine and free of irony. That's why in this video I promise my friends won't be forced to watch. I'd like to talk about Wonka in some depth and why I like it so much. I definitely thought I would find myself in the ironic fandom role when I went to go see this movie. Yes, I got to have the full cinematic experience for Wonka, for which I am endlessly grateful. The only reason it was even on my radar is because the overwhelming marketing for the movie was a running bit on my favorite podcast, My Brother and Me, and since I'm nothing if not willing to jump on top of someone else's funnier joke, I had no choice but to go see it in my local Regal cinema.
This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
And when I tell you that for the entire runtime, my face was stuck in this exact expression, please know that I'm not remotely exaggerating. I walked into the theater expecting to watch a movie that would be a lot of fun to clown on, and indeed, that seems to be what a lot of people got out of it, but I had the most fun I'd had watching a movie in a very long time. Why is that? I hear you wondering, your judgment radiating through my monitor. I am so glad you asked that question I just made up, because that's exactly what I'm going to talk about in this very video. First, I'm going to lay my biases out on the table before we start going through this movie and looking at the parts that I really liked and very occasionally some of the stuff that I am willing to hear criticism on. So, as for my biases, number one, I'm a big Timmy stan. That was less the case when I first saw Wonka, aside from my love of Greta Gerwig's Little Women, but on subsequent viewings I was so deep in the Timmy trenches that there was no way I'd ever have a bad time. Number two, I love musicals. Broadway musicals, movie musicals, off Broadway. It really doesn't matter. I'm a theater kid at heart, as I'm sure you can tell through my entire produced output of videos, and Wonka radiates so much theater kid energy that it's practically made for me. Number three, I like movies that make me smile, even if it's in a super cheesy way. I am only a little bit ashamed to admit that at least 2 of the times that I've watched Wonka, I watched it 4 or 5 times to make this video. At least 2 of those times, I teared up a little bit. I won't pretend to be strong. All of this thus established, let's get into the movie.
And now, our feature presentation.
We get started right off the bat with one of the best songs in the movie, A Hatful of Dreams. It fucking slaps, no question about it, and it brings me to the first topic I would like to talk about, Timmy's voice.
and a hatful of dreams.
I'm of the opinion that casting good actors who are non-singers in roles that require a lot of singing is almost always a bad idea. That being said, Mr. Chalamet does a remarkably competent job. I wasn't expecting Pavarotti by any means, and he certainly isn't that, but he's got a really pleasant tone and does pretty well with the notes that he has to hold. So Wonka here arrives in London with barely any money in his pocket, spending it all in a single day before being picked off the street by Mr. Bleacher, alongside Miss Scrubbit, played by Olivia Colman, and despite the best efforts of main supporting character Noodle,
Read the small print.
Thank you, Noodle, that'll do.
the illiterate Willie is cajoled into signing the world's most exploitative rental agreement. It's just average landlord stuff, really. The next day, still unaware of how bad his situation really is, he heads to the Gallery Gourmet to try to sell chocolate to pay his rent. Another thing I'd like to cut in to mention is I actually really like the set design in this movie. I saw an interview where Timothy gives sort of an overview of the massive scale of the sets, all of which are practically built. In a movie where I think it'd be tempting to take the easiest option of green screening all of the sets everywhere and building out very few practical elements, I really admire that Wonka decided to build some real sets. So once he's at the gallery, he meets the Chocolate Cartel, a group of 3 uber-rich chocolatiers uninterested in innovation and with a special talent for, as the French say, sabotage. It's at this point in the movie where I start to wonder if Wonka is a closet commentary on the evils of capitalism, but even I have to admit maybe that's projecting a little bit. I digress. It's here in the Gallery Gourmet that we get the first version of my favorite song in the movie, but we'll talk about that more when we get there, don't worry. Also, please note the hover chalks that make you fly. Media people smarter than me would call this something of a Chekhov's gun. So the cartel gets the chief of police, inexplicably played by Keegan-Michael Key, to kick out Willie and steal all of his money.
Hey, what are you doing?
Don't worry, it's going to a good cause. Sick kids or something.
When he returns to Scrubbits to find that he's essentially sold himself into debt slavery, we get to meet the rest of the supporting cast, who I will lovingly call Team Wonka.
First you pick up the apparel and you stick it in the barrel, scrub, scrub.
So he gets to know Noodle a little bit more as he acclimates to his new circumstances and has one of my favorite one-liners in the movie.
You can't read, can you?
I focus my studies almost exclusively on chocolate.
We learn a little bit more about Noodle's orphan backstory, and Willie introduces her to her very first chocolate. No sickly sweet movie like this is complete without a flashback to a dead loved one, so Willie helpfully obliges us with this one about his mother. Yes, I was pretty snarky about that, but it works on me, so I'm going to scoot by that before I experience any rogue emotions. One thing I'll note for later, the chocolate she makes for Willie has a secret ingredient that he isn't allowed to know until he's older. This scene also gives me the opportunity to talk about another thing I like about this movie, which is the composition of the music. The lyrics have some questionable bits, even I can't deny that, but the score itself is really well written and has a few nice recurring motifs. The most obvious one here is with a reference to the original film and some other songs in the movie, that being the piano notes of Pure Imagination playing as Noodle takes her first bite of chocolate. The two agree to work with each other and come up with a plan to sell chocolate to escape Scrubbits. In a digression where we meet the chocolate cartel in detail, seeing the extent of their bribery and corruption with a fun little song.
It's simply quid pro quo.
Also, more evidence for my Wonka is a socialist film theory that I've decided to present.
Even the
poor?
The next day, the plan is set in motion.
But if you want to make her sigh,
Tell me.
show her some thigh.
I will not explain how this scene relates to the plan. Willie invents the concept of a washing machine in order to escape to make chocolate, when he tells Noodle that not only have his chocolates been stolen by a funny little orange man,
That you go to sleep, dream about little green man.
Orange man, green hair. Yeah.
he also needs a very special kind of milk.
And C, Willy Wonka does not use any old cow's milk. For this particular creation, I require the milk of a giraffe.
After an extended giraffe milking scene punctuated with a very sweet song,
noodle, noodle, apple strudel.
Willie and Noodle fly across the city while holding onto a bunch of balloons before Willie is tortured by an officer of the state. I'm gonna keep making jokes about this, but like, is Wonka genuinely trying to make social commentary? Probably not in any meaningful way, but like, there's some stuff there. Willie, of course, is not to be deterred by police violence and enlists all his new friends / fellow debt prisoners to help him with his chocolate-making endeavor. They establish a series of signals, utilize the sewers like Pennywise chocolatiers, and sing the best song in the movie, as mentioned before, You've Never Had Chocolate Like This.
Never had chocolate like this. No, you've never had chocolate like this.
This is my favorite song by some distance. I know every word, obviously, but it is also where I need to talk a little bit more about the questionable lyrics I mentioned earlier. Yes, Willy Wonka is a silly and or goofy individual, but if your best idea is to rhyme chocolate so many times that you have to make up words for an entire song, then maybe you should have spent a little bit more time at the drawing board. In fact, here's a list of every word that they rhyme with chocolate. That being said, I think the nonsonance lyrics are fun to sing, and the score is quite nice, so the earworm nature of this song just comes off as charming to me rather than like intensely irritating. This number also features my favorite moment of the film.
Have you ever had chocolate like this?
Everything from the theater kid intonation to the ridiculous pose to the adorable smile. I can't stop watching this one little bit over and over.
Have you ever had chocolate like this?
More commentary about how the police are corrupt from the top down in my kid's musical chocolate movie.
Shouldn't we be focusing on all those unsolved murders?
No. This is the priority.
It's more likely than you think. Now, after half the movie and a number of songs, we finally meet our first and only Oompa Loompa, played by Hugh Grant. A man who could not hate playing this character more if he tried. And like, I get it, he looks ridiculous, everything he does is ridiculous, but I can't help finding some of his lines genuinely funny. Sorry, Hugh, out of respect for your work in Paddington 2, I won't bring up your performance again unless I have to. After the Oompa Loompa shenanigans, Willie's friends surprise him with a storefront in the Gallery Gourmet, bringing him one step closer to achieving his mother's dream. The song here, A World of Your Own, is quite lovely and doesn't have any of the nonsense lyrics I mentioned earlier, so if you're looking for like the best original song to come from this movie, for my money, it's probably this one.
A world of your own.
It also does the best job of letting Timmy play to his vocal strengths.
Clouds are made of cotton candy.
without the music becoming undynamic. Tragically, the chocolate cartel has arranged the poisoning of all of Willy's chocolate with,
Yeti sweat?
leaving Willy defeated and heartbroken. The cartel members offer to pay off everyone's debt and get them out of Miss Scrubbits forever if Willy agrees to leave the city and never make chocolate again, a deal he reluctantly agrees to. However, there are, of course, two secret caveats to this deal. Noodle, instead of being freed, is now being paid to be imprisoned for life by virtue of being Slugworth's secret niece, and the cartel has loaded Willy's ship with an enormous amount of explosives. Yes, children, beloved chocolatier, Willy Wonka, you know from those fun kids movies, is a victim of attempted murder by firebombing. Anyways, he survives the attempt, he rescues Noodle, and the whole group sets their final plan in action. Their mission is to enter the secret chocolate vault located beneath a cathedral via a giraffe-based distraction, find the ledger of the cartel's dirty deeds, and be free to make chocolate for the whole world forevermore. However, they're captured almost immediately, held at gunpoint, and are almost drowned in chocolate.
If we're gonna drown in chocolate, Noodle, and let's face it, we're gonna drown in chocolate, then it's gonna be Wonka chocolate.
Before Hugh Grant's horrifying orange visage appears to save the day. Despite their crimes being revealed and impending arrest, the cartel is nearly able to get away. There's only one thing stopping them. Remember earlier, the Chekhov's gun I mentioned?
Why are we airborne?
You didn't eat any of those chocolates, did you, Mr. Slugworth?
Why? Because they're hover chucks.
Delayed action.
Set up and pay off, baby. Things get wrapped up neatly, and this is the part that makes me tear up. It's so cheesy, but it's sweet. I can't help it. The conclusion of the story, as it always had to be, features the building of the legendary Wonka factory and Timmy singing a pretty decent rendition of Pure Imagination. I half expected it to end with a Marvel-esque Wonka will return title card, but that's it, folks. So why do I love this movie so much? Well, outside of my biases that I mentioned earlier, I just can't help but find every inch of this movie charming and delightful. The outfits, the music, the set design, and the dialogue, it's just top to bottom fun that I love dearly. I love the running jokes, the revisited musical themes and motifs, and, of course, the performances, which are, dare I say, a little camp. I'm not going to say that this movie is a statement of cinematic intent designed to challenge our view of societal structures, and I'm certainly not going to go on my socialist Willy tangent based on practically no evidence, but as far as like fun movies go, it's hard for me to think of something I would enjoy much more than this. I drank the Chalamet Kool-Aid the instant I sat down to watch Dune, and my love for the pure joy I felt during this movie just further justifies that decision to me. There are plenty of valid reasons to dislike this movie, from the questionable lyricism, to the trend of unnecessary prequels, to the idea that Mr. Chalamet is perhaps a bit overexposed these days. That was all sort of how I felt when I was walking into the theater, but for me, the unceasing, boundless joy I felt through every frame of Wonka overcomes all of that to make it a movie I truly, truly love, and one I recommend to basically everyone I talk to at any given moment. Please watch Wonka, if you wouldn't mind terribly. I have a feeling you'll have more fun than you'd expect. Thank you for watching the video. My last one did way better than I expected after not making YouTube videos for a very long time, and because of that, I'm really excited to be making more stuff. Don't be surprised if Timmy worms his way back into my channel through a video about Dune or Call Me By Your Name at some point, but until that time, thanks again for watching, and goodbye.